been a while since I've done one of these, but anyway. Fishman Island. Starting with the Return to Sabaody arc. This arc is super short but super enjoyable, mainly because of the reintroduction of the Straw Hats and the post-time skip changes. I finally hit post-time skip. It's so sick. Luffy doesn't change much, but his new scar is a very depressing reminder of Marineford and of Ace. Usopp's transformation is definitely the biggest glow up amongst the crew. Nami's redesign is super drastic, but I'm a big fan. A really big fan. Robin's redesign was a little disappointing. Unfortunately, they whitewashed my queen. And they did the same with Zoro and Usopp too. I did look it up, and it seems like the darker skin was an anime-only thing, so technically they just corrected it. But I did really like the tan skin, if we're being honest. Frankie's changes are so drastic and so ugly, but in a kind of cool way, so I'm not too mad at it. Now, I think this might be a hot take, judging from general online discourse I've seen. But Chopper's post-time skip design is cuter than his pre-time skip one. His pre-time skip looks a little creepy, and post-time skip is like super cute. And on top of that, most of his forms look better post-time skip, especially Horn Point. This might be the coolest we've ever seen Chopper. On the flip side, Monster Point got a huge visual downgrade, and I think it might be because you can control it, so it seems friendlier now. But it does not look nearly as scary as it did pre-time skip. Brook looks so cool, but I do still prefer his pre-time skip look as well. And finally, I think the best looking Straw Hat post-time skip is Sanji. His new look makes him look super strong and mature. If only he actually was. The scene where Shocky and Rayleigh are waiting at the bar for the Straw Hats is so fucking cool. Zoro arriving first and exchanging the banter with Rayleigh is peak cinema. I wanted to quote it, but fuck it, let's just play it right now. Also, him dragging it throughout the entire arc by giving the Straw Hats numbers in which they arrived is so funny. The arc's super well balanced. It goes from funny things like that and the fake Straw Hats to really intense moments like with the pacifistas. Going back to the fake Straw Hats, how dumb is Chopper? I know he didn't recognize them because he mainly relies on sense of smell and he hasn't smelt his comrades in 2 years. He is still part human and should have a bit of human intuition, so if he can't tell how villainous the fake Straw Hats are and how vastly different they act and look, he's pretty dumb for a doctor. After the confrontation between the Marines and the new pirate crews who wish to enter the New World, the Straw Hats finally leave for Fishman Island, which was the goal in the original Sabaody arc, which feels like hundreds of episodes ago. After they set sail, they are briefly attacked by the Marines, but Boa Hancock and the Amazon Lily Warriors manage to fend them off, and that allows the Straw Hats to begin their journey underwater. But unfortunately for them, there is a stowaway, Caribou. He's a super infamous rookie pirate captain with a bounty of 210 million berries. The bounty makes him part of the new generation of pirates with bounties over 100 million, so he is pretty formidable, and he does cause havoc when we get to Fishman Island. I'm gonna give that arc a rating of 7 out of 10. It was very fun. There wasn't much meat to it, but I loved it. Fishman Island. The arc begins with the Straw Hats arriving in Fishman Island, and they are immediately thrust into the island's social-political issues, mainly the racial tension between fishmen and humans. Now, I don't want this review to be super political, but we do have to cover it a bit because One Piece is inherently a political anime. Well, manga, story. And not covering anything political would be a disservice to the story. Now, wait. When the Straw Hats reach Fishman Island... When the Straw Hats reach Fishman... Oh my god, I can't say fish. When the Straw Hats reach Fishman Island, they encounter the new Fishman pirates, who refuse to let them through unless Luffy becomes an underling. Luckily though, Frankie uses a Kuda burst to push through the bubble and escape. Luffy, Sanji, Usopp, and Chopper meet up with Kami, who we met in the original Sabaody arc. Of course, Zoro gets lost and ends up getting captured by King Neptune's army, and they take him to the palace. Hordy Jones, the captain of the new Fisherman Pirates, learns of their arrival and orders their immediate capture as well. Luffy's group heads to Mermaid Cove and Sanji gets to realize his long-lost dream of being surrounded by beautiful mermaids. But unfortunately, this does almost cost him his life. I love how this was done because his pervy nosebleed almost killing him is hilarious, even though him being a perv is the worst part about his character. But what makes it really good is it's used as a plot device to set up a key bit of information that we'll get to later. The Mermaid Cove experience is ruined when new fishman pirates, I'm just going to call them fishman pirates from now on. The experience is ruined when the fishman pirates rock up to try to capture Luffy and the others. Something unique we get to see is our first ever fishman with a devil fruit ability. Now, I don't know why a fishman would do that, considering swimming is one of their strengths and they can no longer swim if they have a devil fruit. But who am I to judge? The only thing I'm going to judge this fishman on is being a giant pedo. I'm of course referring to Vanderdecken, who is a 35-year-old fishman who is obsessed with a 16-year-old mermaid princess named Shirahoshi. He's been obsessed with her for about 10 years, meaning he was 25 and she was 6. I know, that's really fucking gross. Speaking of Princess Shirahoshi, Luffy stumbles upon her while exploring the palace. She was in hiding because of Vanderdecken's threats and homing weapons that he kept launching at her. What a fucking freak. Luffy then promises to take her outside and protect her because that is her dream, to go outside. While this is happening, the Straw Hats are wrongly accused of kidnapping mermaids because Caribou kidnaps the mermaids. This leads to a huge battle and basically Haughty Jones defeats Zoro and King Neptune because of an energy steroid. Luffy reunites with Jinbei at the Sea Forest with Shirahoshi, and he learns of the tragic history of Fishman Island, including Queen Otohime's assassination and the racial tension on the island. I loved this flashback so much. Fisher Tiger, who we learn about when we meet Boa Hancock, his backstory is so depressing, but he's also such a cool character. We also get to see a young Jinbei and Arlong. Arlong is a lot like Haughty Jones in the way that he does not trust humans at all, even an innocent little girl. But unfortunately, he was kind of proven right when she rats out Fisher Tiger to the Marines, which ultimately leads to his death. So, I don't know. She's a kid though, so it's a tough one. Going back to Sanji's nosebleed that I mentioned earlier, he could not get a blood transfusion to save his life, and neither could Fisher Tiger. The reason Fisher Tiger died is because he could not get a blood transfusion. I thought that was a pretty cool link. Jinbei also reveals his role in sending Arlong to the East Blue, which obviously led to all the shit that Arlong did there. I didn't really elaborate on Queen Otohime enough. She wasn't just the queen of the island and Shirahoshi and the prince's mother. She was like the patron saint of Fishman Island. She was a political activist who worked hard for union and peace between fishmen, merfolk, and humans. And she also had the dream of having all of Fishman Island immigrate to the surface one day and not be excluded from the rest of the world like they currently are or were. This didn't sit right with a lot of humans and even some fishmen like Haughty Jones. And that bit of the story was so hard to watch because after trying for so long to make any strides, as soon as she did, it all comes crushing down and she also dies. So that was depressing as fuck. I'll speed up the recap a bit just so I can give more thoughts and not just tell you what happened, because you could watch it and you probably have if you're watching this. The climax of the arc was super long and I kind of did lose interest in it. The Straw Hats vs the Fishman Pirates was an insanely good fight, but it dragged for way too long. But one of the payoffs was we got to see some new abilities, which is cool, especially Sanji's Skywalk. I was ecstatic when that happened. The battle between Haughty and Luffy moves outside of the bubble, which is obviously a disadvantage for Luffy as he has a devil fruit and is also just a human. Up until this point, Haughty feels like a very boring and one-note villain, and he doesn't really feel like a threat even though he's really strong and he has steroids. But then they show how much of a psycho he is when Prince Fukaboshi asks him what the humans ever did to him to make him act this way, and he simply replies with nothing. That changed everything for me in this arc. It's so fucked up. At that point, the whole arc just flips on its head, and all my thoughts about Haughty changed. He didn't feel so one-note anymore after that. He went from being an Arlong worshipper, before saying Arlong was weak-minded, to just pure evil, like evil for the sake of being evil. like hating humans, even though he claims he didn't experience anything negative from them. Like, I'd understand if he hated humans because of what his elders and his ancestors went through, i.e. discrimination and slavery. But he doesn't care about that, which is so fucked up. Another thing I noticed on the Fishman pirates is they don't have the sun symbol of Fisher Tiger's Sun Pirates, which means they did not have the need to cover up the Celestial Dragon mark, which means they were never slaves, obviously. And to make it even worse, they chose their own symbol that wouldn't be able to cover the Celestial Dragon mark. So I think that was amazingly done by Oda. A very tiny but impactful detail. I wish the whole arc was as hype as those few minutes with that reveal and the psychoticness, and then with Fisher Tiger's backstory. If the whole arc was like that, this would be one of the best arcs. But unfortunately, it's not. We get an amazing whole cake teaser when Luffy confronts some of Big Mom's goons. He ends up challenging her to a fight, and also he makes a huge stride towards becoming an emperor. And it got me so hyped. He claims Fishman Island as his territory and says he's gonna protect it, just like Whitebeard did. It's so fucking cool. Man, I can't wait to get to Whole Cake Island. But like I said, most of the arc is pretty mid, so I'm gonna rate it a 6 out of 10. If we had a bit more of those cool moments, we could bump it up to a 7, maybe even an 8. But there's too much fluff. Now we go on to some awards, starting with favorite location. I am scared as fuck of the ocean, so it's gonna have to be Sabaody. I do not like the ocean. I'm not going near Fishman Island. My favorite devil fruit. This arc was pretty shit for new devil fruits that we were introduced to. Off the top of my head, I can literally only think of Caribou and Vanderdecken. And unfortunately, it's going to have to be Vanderdecken's devil fruit because it is kind of cool even though he's not. My 3 least favorite characters. In third place is the whole Fishman pirate crew, all of Hordy's underlings. I hate them all. In second place is Hordy himself, second least favorite character. And in first, it shouldn't be a surprise. It's the raging pedo himself, Vanderdecken. Now we go into the positive one, my 3 favorite characters. In third place, Zoro. I didn't speak about him much this arc, but he is still cool as ever. In second place, Sanji. He wouldn't have been second because of the nosebleed, but because I saw the skywalk, I had to bump him up to second again. And in first place, I don't think anyone's surprised here. It's Fisher Tiger. What a guy. I love Fisher Tiger. Before my overall rating for the saga, I give a mini overall thought. The saga was way too long and boring, but I did love the topics that Oda covered, and the deep lore and history of Fishman Island was sick as fuck, and the flashbacks were also sick as fuck, so that was a few saving graces for a shit arc. So in my opinion, it's still better than Thriller Bark and Skypiea, but I can't remember what I rated those, and I'm going to rate this a 6.5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. I am about to film a very, very big One Piece video because my reviews have caught up to where I am in the show. So, big video coming soon. Please subscribe so you don't miss that. Please do like the video. Please do let me know your thoughts about Fishman Island in the comments, and I will see you next week